The new Tales of the Jedi trailer is going to bring us much deeper into the world of both Count Dooku and Ahsoka Tano. From Ahsoka's family discovering she's a Force sensitive to Count Dooku really crossing the line, making his turn to the dark side, let's take a deep dive into this trailer to find out a few things you may not have noticed the first time around. We see right off the bat Padme's funeral on Theed, which is the capital of Naboo, and her carriage is being pulled by these animals called the Guilars. A bit later in the trailer, we get to see a quick flash that Ahsoka is there on Naboo for the funeral. Now this is significant because Palpatine was no doubt watching the funeral and probably had scouts and agents looking for any Jedi. The fact that Ahsoka is willing to risk so much after everything she's gone through and survived just to be there at Padme's funeral hits you right in the feels, man. I think this scene is gonna be super heavy. Next, we see Count Dooku standing underneath the Unity tree at the Jedi Temple. This tree we see a lot in the last 3 episodes of the Clone Wars Season 6, where Yoda trains to become a Force ghost. He has a vision of Count Dooku, Qui-Gon, and Obi-Wan all there by the tree. The Great Tree is the name of this one that's located in the Jedi Temple courtyard. So these trees, they're actually in the temple, they're said to have a strong connection to the Force. And if you're a Rogue One fan, our good buddy Chirrut Imwe, a Guardian of the Wills, also has a staff that's made from this Unity tree. Next, we see baby Ahsoka looking up at a giant Akul. Now these saber-toothed tiger-like creatures are native to the planet Sheely. In Legends, these Akul were feared by the Togrutas because they could destroy entire villages. They were hunted by the Togrutas, and then the teeth were actually part of their headdresses, but only a Togruta who killed one of these single-handedly could wear the teeth on their headdress. Shaak Ti was one that accomplished this, but I'm interested to see, and I'd put my money on it, that Ahsoka isn't going to kill this Akul. I think she's going to use Force powers to control it. Now there's a reference to this type of power. It's called beast control or animal bond, a beast trick, or animal friendship, but it allows the Force user to calm an animal down, and then she's able to ride it, and you can see that later on in the trailer that she rides the Akul. Ezra Bridger has the same ability to control the Purgils in Rebels. We see Ahsoka, of course, like I said briefly in the trailer, riding this Akul later. Also hoping to see how she's found by Plo Koon. She was about 3 years old, and a Zygerian slayer actually posed as a Jedi and tried to steal Ahsoka. But even at 3 years old, she was able to escape and then went with Master Plo, who she knew she could trust right away. We then see Anakin training Ahsoka along with Rex and the 501st. This training and her move she does is exactly what move she shows in the Clone Wars at the end during Order 66, which is such a cool tie-in that Anakin drills into her how to fight off all these opponents at once, that his training and his teachings are what save her life. Then we see the ship that I think is Ahsoka's. This same model of the ship we see is where she picks up Sabine Wren in the finale of Rebels. The paint job looks a little bit different, but I think that this is Ahsoka. Next, we see again Count Dooku, and he's with a young Qui-Gon Jinn. Man, this made me so happy to see. And in the book, Master and Apprentice, we learn a little bit of the relationship between Dooku and Qui-Gon, and how Dooku is a big reason why Qui-Gon studies some of the ancient prophecies, because Dooku himself was obsessed with the prophecies. And this ties into Qui-Gon believing that Anakin is the Chosen One, because they both were a big believer in the Chosen One prophecy. Now it looks like we're going to see the progression of Dooku falling to the dark side and how it affects Qui-Gon. They were extremely close, and we finally get to see more of this story, and I am happy about it. Now both of them believe the Jedi lost their way, but obviously both went in completely different directions in dealing with it. Then we get to see Mace with Dooku, obviously much later in the timeline, and it appears that Dooku is starting to really cross the line and embrace more of the dark side. Then we also see Ahsoka again walking down a long corridor. She's talking to somebody and saying that she's tired of fighting. Now she says this to Bail Organa in the Ahsoka novel when he finds her and he asks her to join the rebellion. We see Bail briefly also in the trailer, so we may dive into that series of events there. Next, we see Obi-Wan and Yoda at a funeral, which I think might be Yaddle. And here we see a few other notable Jedi. We see Depa Billaba, who is master of the Padawan Caleb Dune, or you guys might know him as Kanan Jarrus. We also see Saesee Tiin here on the right, and then Tera Sinube, the Jedi Master that helped Ahsoka when she lost her lightsabers, and then later on we saw him in the Kenobi series. He was captured and killed and his body was being held under Fortress Inquisitorius. Now again, I think this is Yaddle's funeral because we see her fighting Dooku in the trailer, and this may be obviously a major turning point for Dooku in his fall. She probably suspects him of some kind of treachery, or she catches him doing something like deleting Kamino from the archives. Finally, we end with what seems like a scene from the Ahsoka novel. This looks like a redesign maybe of the sixth brother who fights Ahsoka on Raeda. Now this is pretty interesting because in the Ahsoka novel, she saves her friend Caden Lardy from the sixth brother, but we see here this is actually a boy on his knees, so it isn't Caden. Now this Inquisitor looks different from the sixth brother that we see in the comics, so it might be a redesign. It's obviously an Inquisitor. Now this isn't the first time that details from the Ahsoka book have been changed. When E.K. Johnston was writing the Ahsoka novel, she was asked by Filoni not to write about the Siege of Mandalore in the book. Now she didn't know it at the time, but they were actually making season 7 of the Clone Wars, so there's details that are different in the Clone Wars series than they are from the Ahsoka novel, and it looks like maybe they changed some of these things again, and I guess we'll see. They haven't had any issues so far in changing details from the book, but keeping some of the major events the same. So at this point, it's within a year or so after Order 66, they're on Raeda, she doesn't have her lightsabers, and then she kills this Inquisitor and takes his crystals and purifies them white. So maybe what we see is Ahsoka purifying her crystals and then Dooku bleeding his. I think that would be super interesting. And we're getting, I believe, 3 episodes of Ahsoka, her early life on Sheely in 1 episode, her attending Padme's funeral and then dealing with the sixth brother in another episode, and then finally Anakin training her to survive Order 66 in the final episode. I'm thinking, at least that's what makes sense to me in my head. Then we're gonna see Dooku with a young Qui-Gon and their relationship. Then we see the events with Dooku and Mace, as well as Dooku fighting Yaddle. And I think this being like 15 to 20 minute shorter episodes, I'm guessing it's going to be absolutely full of more meaningful content and not so much filler and fluff like we've been seeing in some of the other shows. So that's my breakdown, guys. Click here to see how Ahsoka got her white lightsabers in the Ahsoka novel, which I touched on in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you.